Good morning, folks, and welcome back to B2B Breakfast to Business. Happy month of May, ladies and gents. We actually celebrated Labor's Day a couple of weeks back, and today we really wanted to talk about our teams, our workplaces, to really celebrate the amazing workforce that we have. As you guys know, B2B is really a platform that talks about things that matter, right? Over a big breakfast. We really want to be able to look into thought-provoking discussions over a cup of piping hot tea, morning conversations on topics that matter with some extra kick from that freshly brewed coffee. So I hope all of you guys have had your share of a big breakfast or that you are drinking your cup of joe right this minute. Today, we are going to talk shop, we talk life, we talk culture, we talk advocacies, we talk real, and today we have a very special program actually because we are talking about how to create well-being programs in the workplace. Now, I know guys, it's been more than a year in varying degrees of lockdowns in an effort to curb the spread of the COVID-19 virus. It's still very much present, but I know that with the rollout of our national vaccination program, we are excited to see really the end of this pandemic, and we are crossing our fingers and toes for that one. But while we are still really battling that front, businesses continue to look into ways to keep operations flowing while keeping their employees feeling safe, secure, and productive. Now, I know various surveys have actually also gone out to the workforce to see how we can safeguard our employees' overall well-being through employee engagement programs. Now, the big questions really that we have when creating these well-being programs are what are the roles everybody in the organization plays to make this happen? Like for leaders, what should we be looking at or listening to when creating these programs? And for our employees or our team members, what are the important things you should be saying to help in program creation and cultural building? What can you tell management so that we can help them actually create these programs? You know, I really do believe it takes two to tango. And the big question today is how do we get both sides to empower each other to make great programs work in the workplace? What we say or don't say actually make a difference in well-being program creation, and that's what we want to tackle today. So in this episode, we'll be talking about creating overall well-being programs in the workplace with Uploan, featuring our special guest, Jen Simons of Uploan and the Level Up podcast host. Now, guys, just a little bit about Jen. She is a fabulous person. I love her energy and I love her insights. She is the communication manager of Uploan and is the producer and host of the Level Up podcast. She is a communications expert looking for meaningful ways to cultivate employee wellness. Her thrust really is day in, day out, making employee wellness a priority because it makes business sense. And I'm super happy, super excited to have Jen over here. Hi, Jen. Good morning.
How are you doing, Bea? Good morning. Hey, everybody.
Good morning, Jen. I'm good. I'm just super excited to have you here. How have you been? How have you been this week?
It's been a great week. I turned 38 and it was, the best birthday ever, actually. Even if it was the second one in lockdown, I feel like my last birthday was really just honestly, kind of sad. Like, there was no end in sight. And now we're seeing people really get safe for real. And yeah, like you mentioned, the rollout of the vaccine, it is an ongoing lesson in patience, but it is happening. So that really brought me a lot of joy. Yeah, on so many levels.
Happy birthday, Jen! Happy birthday! I'm so happy because we both celebrated our second lockdown birthdays in ECQ. So I'm so glad that we also feel that ray of sunshine, that ray of hope. Because I do agree, like last year it was a lot of uncertainty, and while we are still battling COVID-19, you can see it, right? You can see the light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. And so I'm glad that you brought the word joy into the conversation, because I think that I think that that's what everybody wants to achieve. And while it's been such a difficult journey, and that's why we're actually talking about it today, while it's been a difficult journey, so many people want to create solutions, right? Concrete solutions for everybody to feel hopeful, but at the same time, safe, secure, and productive while we're still in lockdown, right? So before we even start on the many things we want to talk about today, Jen, I just wanted folks to know more about you, Jen. So what do you do? What do you love most? What are you passionate about? And what's your advocacy? Go ahead.
Well, I just actually during the pandemic had the opportunity to really figure out my purpose, like coming out of 15 years in corporate real estate. I was pretty lost. Like it was everything looked like it was all together on the surface, but the inside of my mind was just really noisy, and I had a lot of trouble sort of just understanding what to do next. Like I was in a fabulous job for 8 years. Before that, it was also very much chasing profit for the company, and it just felt like there had to be more to life than that. So that's actually why I joined Uploan. It's a really exciting way to sort of make systemic change sustainable. This company, it's working on a huge issue. We work on my work is centered on financial literacy and the financial education part of our business. We do provide salary deducted services. So things like salary advances, insurance, actually the insurance is free, and salary loans that are really low cost and fair. And we actually create our own credit rating system. So people who would only have sort of, informal predatory options now have a legitimate option that actually allows them to integrate into the formal financial system. So that was like a whole new world for me. And I love learning new things. So from, straight up contracts and negotiating real estate to learn about how finance works and how best to educate people about, complex things that really, let's be honest, are super intimidating.
Yeah.
It kind of ticked a lot of boxes for me. So I'm super excited about that. And mental health and the pursuit of pleasure, it sounds really hedonistic, but that is, I think, really important in terms of finding your inner peace and satisfying yourself on all of the levels of yourself. So that's sort of, I think lately, maybe, Bea, I'm sure this is how it is with you too, because we associate our sense of self so much with our work and what we do every day.
Absolutely.
That really Uploan and my sense of self have become so integrated.
Absolutely, I love it. And Jen, actually, to take one of your phrases, right? I love what you said. You came into this world, this brand new world, because you wanted to make systemic changes that are sustainable. And I love that, because I think that if there's one thing also that we've really seen in this whole past year of really difficult roller coaster rides of ups and downs and twists and turns, right, is that the only thing constant is change, right? And there are so many opportunities for us to make changes that will really have a positive impact in the things that we do. And I love what you said, that the sense of self really gets integrated in what you want to do. And bring it back to what you said earlier, purpose is so important. And I love that, you made that shift because you also felt like, this was not only something new that you wanted to take on, but also that you also wanted to get that inner peace, like that sense of self really deeply rooted in you, right? So I know also, Jen, you and I had conversations very early on in the pandemic. This has been going on for quite some time, that you wanted to actually also talk about these changes, right? Talk about these very important issues. And you mentioned it earlier: mental health, financial literacy, really empowering employees and the workforce to be their best self, right? And to have a really comfortable work environment. And you guys came up with a Level Up podcast. So can you talk more about that? How did that come to be? What was the vision, and why was this such an important undertaking?
Well, we had planned to do uh, an audio version of our financial education last year. But then, of course, like so many things, it was kind of derailed by the pandemic. And we found that since, as an employee benefit, with the goal of transforming lives, right? Uploan is really supporting HR people and business leaders like yourself, right? And you guys had a lot to deal with, business owners and most especially HR people who were being sort of buffeted back and forth by the different government rules and the needs of the employees, and everybody needing a different type of care and an extreme level of care. They needed some resources, right? And we really started thinking of them as the frontliners of the business community and started putting ourselves in their place even more than usual to see what we could do to support them during that really strange time. I mean, those first few months were really scary, right? And that's how it really happened. We started talking a lot about mental health because people were afraid, basically, and
Yeah.
fear really is such a debilitating emotion, right? And emotions aren't usually things that we talk about in the workplace at all. And all of a sudden we had to talk about it. And that was just so weird. And what I wanted to mention, what you said in your intro, actually, like what the podcast was really about was how to empower each other and not just empower HR people or exclusively business leaders.
Yeah.
We really make it a point to approach each topic on the Level Up podcast from an employee's perspective and the leader's perspective, because like you said, it takes two to tango, right? Like there's no, it has to be a give and take. We are a community and we're social beings, and it's not going to work if only one stakeholder is investing, right? So Level Up is really putting forward tools to help employees invest in themselves, HR leaders giving them tools to help your teams invest in themselves also, because ultimately I think we learned pretty quickly that you can't just keep taking, right? You
Right.
can't keep taking like energy from your leadership, from your HR. You have to really find some solid ground to stand on for yourself, right?
I love
And
that. Yeah.
so that's what we were aiming to provide with the podcast, with
No,
our podcast.
that's beautiful, Jen. Actually, when you were talking, everything that was going onto my mind is I can't read minds. Like, I know, I love what you said, like as business owners and whatnot, right? It was about being able to support folks because we were all experiencing something so new, right? And while we were all grappling to find solutions and ways to go about things, even if you wish you had that superpower, we can't read each other's minds, nor can we read each other's feelings if we're not actually able to talk about it. And I loved what you said. Like, here in Team Asia, our culture is, we're a family. We're a family of passionate people. So actually, we've been talking about our feelings for a while. But like what you said, it wasn't something that was at the core of what we had to deal with every day, right? It was about support. Before, it was about supporting one another, really lifting each other up. But this time around, it was really, really what people would say in our vows, right? Through sickness and health, and through tough times and great times, right? So yeah, absolutely. I think that what you said also is about being able to connect with people so that people could provide those solutions, but also for us to stand on solid ground. I absolutely loved what you said. And on that note, actually, Jen, I know that Uploan also, to be able to actually empower both sides, right? Business owners and HR, as well as our employees and workforce, data is so important. And I know that Uploan actually conducts employee surveys, right? To really get the pulse of what's going on, and get the pulse of what's going on, what's important to them, what are they going through, so that when we actually look for solutions for both ends, we have the data to back it up. And I know you guys actually did the survey like right smack when the pandemic happened. So I wanted to check in with you. Like, what is the survey about? What was the vision behind it? And yeah, what were the key findings? I know that this was done last year, but I'm super curious about what came out and how we saw it progressing through the months. Go ahead, Jen.
Well, you mentioned that you talk about your feelings a lot at Team Asia. And I just wanted to point out how incredibly unique that is. Like, this is not something that happens in a lot of workplaces, like by any stretch of the imagination. So it was really important for us to give employees that we service, like we have partners who are their employers, and we had 9,000 of their employees across about 200 companies at the time give us feedback about what they were interested in. At this point, it was towards the end of 2020, and I think we started on November 2nd. We released the survey, and we had really interesting results. Like, as a company that prioritizes education about personal finance and empowering employees with the knowledge that, hey, your job is something that is going to empower you beyond just paying your bills, it was kind of shocking that that personal finance was not at the top of the list, I guess, right? If you're a carpenter, what's that saying where if you're a hammer, all you see is nails? Right?
Yeah, something to that effect.
I think that's why over the past 10 months, I think everybody's taken more surveys than they've ever taken, because everybody's realized that, hey, you know what? We're not actually seeing the whole picture here. And the highlights of the survey were super significant to us, because although people were concerned about covering their bills, it wasn't as much of a concern as professional growth and obviously their health, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the middle of a global pandemic, we asked them about their personal development, health and well-being, professional growth, mental health, and their personal finance. So the objectives really were to understand what is important to employees, because our objective really is to keep employees to reduce the stress that employees experience, right? So that they can focus on their work and becoming satisfied with their daily tasks, and therefore not just benefit themselves, but really benefit the greater community that they're a part of, their company. Absolutely. So it was really it was really interesting. Like, of course, we expected to see personal finance at the top of the list. We're like, of course, people are taking salary cuts, people are losing their jobs, they're worried about personal finance. But interestingly, the top interest was really professional growth. This was all about developing their leadership skills and setting goals and understanding how they could be more efficient at work, basically work smarter. That was the most interesting thing. So second was health and well-being, which I think is pretty understandable considering everybody was worried about getting ill. So those were the highlights for us. And that had a huge impact on our even just product development. Like, we developed a COVID insurance that we provided for free to all of our partner employees. Right now, we're continuing to even benefit from the knowledge that we have received from this survey, and we're creating a really easy way for employees to fund the vaccines of their family members. Nice. You know how a lot of employers are vaccinating their employees. well, employers are not actually obliged to vaccinate the family members of employees. So we've created a really good, I there's so many different ways of saying it, like layaway plan or
Yeah.
installment plan, or it's a financial instrument basically to help people cover the cost of the vaccines for their whole family
Mm-hmm.
without bearing the brunt of it on like one paycheck, right?
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of DOLE guidelines, and I mean, we hold ourselves to really high standards of ensuring that employees take home at least 50% of their paycheck.
Absolutely.
So it's sometimes impossible to vaccinate, more than just yourself if you're going to pay for it straight up
Yeah.
out of one paycheck. So that's really what we've done with the knowledge. It's also affected our content on the Level Up podcast. We've talked a lot more about how to develop your communication skills. That's something that I'm really passionate about too. So we started a pilot project, which is have you heard of Toastmasters? It's
Yes.
this communication and leadership program. Like,
Yep.
I started my own Toastmasters club when I was 16.
Nice.
So we started a speech craft inside within Uploan, and so it's had a lot of really great effects. We're actually going to run the survey again in the middle of the year. So in about a month or two, we're going to ask our employee partners about how they're feeling. So I hope we can talk again and share the news about how that's changed over the year, or the 6 months, and let everybody listening know whether it's changed, and if anxiety has lessened, etc. You do these types of surveys with your own team, right?
Yeah,
Like, you're
actually,
always in touch with them.
I was gonna say, Jen, that we definitely need to talk, right? Like right after you guys get the results of the 2021 survey, because it's so amazing how, again, like our thoughts were this would be the priority of our people because we knew we were all going through that, right? So yeah, when you told me about that survey, I was like, yep, personal finance is probably going to be on top. But then it's amazing how the data shows you a different take on how people saw the pandemic, right? Because I can just imagine why people also wanted personal growth because it was also the uncertainty of their job. Like, just last year, we spoke to author Malik Parek, and he talked about how to future proof your career and company. And so he wrote this book, and it was so beautiful that it came out during the pandemic because I think that at the end of the day, that was what people were thinking. Am I future proof? Hit by this pandemic that has actually changed the way we live, work, learn, experience, play, everything, right? Am I ready for a big shift or evolution in the world? And I think that really seeped into the personal growth thing. So I totally agree with that. But yes, to answer your question, is that we do run surveys also at Team Asia because so we've always had an open door policy, Jen. Like I have an open door policy. It's like, it's a safe space. You and I can have a really good, open casual conversation, feedbacking system and the like. Because for me it's so important to know what's on the ground. And I know how hard it is. So Jen, you're a communications expert, right? So I know it's also how hard for our teams to really also speak their mind if they are not provided with that safe environment to talk about it, because of course they're thinking there's so many things that go on in your head. Can I really talk about this? Should I really share this? So I know that there are a lot of factors, but that shouldn't stop us from providing that level of that avenue for those conversations to happen. And again, it takes two to tango. You need to be open for people to come to you, but at the same time, as the person who is being asked for the feedback, you also need to actually be open enough to share that honest feedback, not because you're worried about something, but because you also want to contribute to the bigger community, as you mentioned earlier. So yes, we do have those open conversations. We do have some surveys, but yeah, I super want to know what this 2021 survey comes in, because I think that the data will help companies and leaders and managers like me to really dig deep, aside from just coming up with programs because we think it's cool or that we think it's helpful. we get to create programs that will actually really contribute and make their life easier, right? Because that is really the goal.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very challenging though, because no matter how much we talk about receiving feedback from employees, there's still a very established power structure in every workplace. So that's what has changed, honestly. It
Yeah.
feels like we've totally decentralized,
Yeah.
and it's very empowering and exciting, because now, I mean, while employees have more freedom to structure their days how, it would best work for them, if they're lucky enough to have the space, first of all, to pursue work as they want to work. um it's it comes with a lot of responsibility, and you show up in a different way, right? There's no more work life balance. It's an integration, and your work culture carries through to your home, right? there's there's a there's no open door policy in my house when I'm on a call. There's like nobody better walk into that door. So, right, it's so different. Like, you have
Yeah.
to be, there's no more two people, right? There's no more work gen. There's no more, right, boss Bea. It's just Bea now, right?
I know. Yeah. It's like you have to manage your life. Yeah, so it's exactly that. You're no longer just managing certain things. You're managing all of the pillars of your life together and at the same time. I'm sure you've had these experiences, Jen, where you're doing laundry and on a call at the same time, or cooking lunch because you're not yet done, but your family needs to eat. I mean, I think that that's the story of our life.
That obviously comes with a lot of stress, right? And it's not
Absolutely.
just stress that you can turn off at the end of the day. It's a constant level of a constant higher level of stress. So the founder of Life Science Wellness Clinics, who we just had on the Level Up podcast, was saying, so basically he was describing to me stress and how this sustained stress has affected our bodies, like on a molecular level, right? Like, they measure this stuff at Life Science, and they so I basically, parang I was so shocked at how he was describing it, basically. And I was like, so what, we're all traumatized now? It sounded like he was describing trauma, right? And he
Yeah.
basically said, yeah, we're pretty much all traumatized. Like, so handle yourself and your employees, your team members. If you're a supervisor, if if you manage like one other person, you have to include that in how you are acting. We are acting towards each other and towards ourselves. Like, we have to be so much more gentle with ourselves, because, yeah, guys, we've all experienced this collective trauma now, and
Absolutely.
we're not gonna be, there's no going back, right? Like, this is how we are now, and hopefully it's made us gentler people. But
Yeah.
one thing that he really told us, that would be helpful, and it made me feel so like granola-y and hippie, was like just breathing. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, I know how to do that. And he's like, really? So let's breathe together. And I was like, okay, okay, okay. So there really are things you have to do to remember how to breathe the right way. And he was like, that's step one. Let's all just start breathing. Like, even if you don't consciously do it every day, or all day, every day, just do it before you eat, he was saying, because then your body will be able to absorb the nutrients from your food in the right way, instead of
Nice.
just processing it and letting it out of your body. So
Yeah.
that was really cool. That was a really tangible thing that, everybody can start doing. Just take like 4 breaths, like deep breaths, hold it for 4 seconds, let it out as slowly as you can. Just take 4 of those before you eat, before every meal, and your body will be able to absorb nutrients better from your food. Isn't that so cool?
That is so cool. See, these are the things that we were not conscious about. I mean, I'm sure some folks were conscious about it before. I wasn't. I mean, there are times actually, Jen, when someone has actually had to tell me, okay, breathe. It's like you don't even know you're holding your breath. Like, I mean, I'm so lucky that I found my yoga practice 2 years back, like before this pandemic hit, because I don't think I would be here if I didn't know how to breathe. Because before, it's like you're holding that terminology, you're holding your breath, like but it's really true. Sometimes we forget to consciously breathe, and that adds to the stress of your body, and I'm sure your body reacts to it. So it's so good to hear from life sciences themselves, right? That, hey, you know what? You actually need to breathe so that you can get all of these nutrients and stuff. Yeah, so Jen, I'm actually so going back to everything that we talked about, and actually also knowing like what you just shared on so many things that we can do at the core level, at the molecular level on our own. I can also say that from an organization standpoint, right? Like going back to what is needed now, that people need well-being programs to not only stay sane and stay fabulous during the pandemic, but also to keep your culture and your business intact, right? Because we are still battling this pandemic. So my big question to you is, Jen, based on what you guys are doing in Uploan and Level Up, or even through the survey and the like, how can leaders and team members really come together to make this happen, right? Like, how important are employee engagement programs right now to keep everything together? What do you think?
Well, everybody needs to invest in it, right? Everybody by now has realized that, though. It's everything from the mental health webinar that HR invites everyone to the weekly, our operations team calls it Summer Saya, right? There are games that teams are playing together now. The thing is, they're quite varied, right? There's no guidebook for this. And actually, you know what? I take that back. There is a guidebook for this. It was put together by Salesforce and Thrive Global. There's a 3-step guidebook that suggests micro steps, like very small steps to introduce to your leaders so that they can integrate it to every single team meeting effectively.
Okay.
This, maybe we can put the link on your show notes,
Yeah, sure,
for this episode so everybody can have access. That's a really good general guideline, because and of course it's from Salesforce. I mean, like one of the most successful companies in the world, right? That's, I think, a really good roadmap for integrating it into every level, because it has, what we've learned from the experts that we've had on the podcast, and even within Uploan, it has to start from the top, right?
Yeah.
There needs to be leadership walking the talk and understanding that, hey, if somebody's not feeling well today, then I'm not going to give them, if they're on leave, I'm not going to give them a call, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even if this is like, you evaluate it and you decide what's important to you, and you actually think about it before you do things. It's not like there's no more autopilot. And your people, when they're not around, then you have no company. I think everybody's realized that as well. So if your employees are not engaged, they are not going to show up for you.
Mm-hmm.
Whether they're there, people have talked about presenteeism, right? Like being there and being present, even if you're not actively productive, is no longer, it's like noticeable now. There's no more time in, time out mentality. It's, if you're not engaged as an employee yourself, then you're also going to suffer. Your mental health, your satisfaction, your pleasure, which is so important, is not going to be there either. So engagement, I think, needs to be systematized
Yeah.
so that it can be measured, because that's really how businesses work, right? Like if it's been so difficult to talk about emotion and mental health, which that's something I've learned also, actually. Like
Yeah.
your emotional state is actually your mental health,
Yeah.
right? That was a huge like light bulb moment for me. Like my feelings are my mind. What? So we've been taught the opposite, right? Like mind over heart.
Absolutely.
But that's actually not how your body works.
Yeah.
So an engaged employee is somebody whose heart and mind is with you in your business, working towards your goals. And that's the only kind of employee worth having, if you ask me.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more, Jen, because again, like if you go back to it, we put up businesses for a purpose, right? And you always want to be aligned. And, you always pride yourself about being able to find, a team, a talent pool of passionate individuals who are soaring high with the same purpose. And so, like with what you said, an engaged employee who is there with you, heart, mind, and soul, is the kind of team you want because you guys are all going towards one purpose, right? And it's so important to create those programs where you guys can come together, and even if there is that lack of being together face to face, there are ways that we can still go about that. So I guess, and I guess the question now becomes even bigger, right? Like, Jen, what is the best approach in program creation in the workplace then? Because I mean, like going back to what you said, like, yes, we have this model, this is the kind of employee that we want. And I'm sure our employees have this notion also of what kind of leader they want, right? How do we get them to tango? How do we get them to tango?
How do we get them to tango without making it one more thing to do also,
Absolutely.
right? Like
Yeah.
there's this pressure to be there for your employees on a whole other level that you were probably, let's be honest, kind of pretending didn't exist for the first half of your career before the pandemic. Or leaders are under so much pressure because the demands on them, like suddenly they have to deal with emotional problems, right? Like I remember when in my previous corporate role, I would just dread it when one of my employees would like look like she was on the verge of crying, and I would just be like, oh, like totally recoiling, like I don't know how to deal with this. It's so difficult to be there on and be soft and gentle while you're trying to get a job done, right? So I think the first step is to understand as a leader that you are enough, you are capable of doing this, and taking it really one step at a time, right? That's why I like the Salesforce and Thrive Global Guide so much, because there's so much emphasis on very small changes that are really easy to integrate. Like it's not like that big New Year's resolution that you're gonna lose 20 pounds. It's like, okay, let's like metaphorically like avoid a cookie today.
Yeah.
It's very small things that are totally achievable, that actually involve you as a leader teaching somebody else how to not need you. So I think that's the key, right? We are not we need to create workspaces that are centered around the idea of abundance, that
Yeah.
there is enough for everyone. I can empower you to take care of yourself, to be the best you can be. And that doesn't take anything away from me, right? Because
Yeah.
there are leaders who will dominate responsibility and basically just dominate because maybe they are the best people to do the job. That's fair. But now there are too many balls in the air, I guess,
Yeah.
to keep them all up there by yourself. So as a leader, you need to empower your team members to take care of themselves on a lot of the levels that you probably used to take care of them on,
Yeah.
right? And as employees, you've got to understand that this is an opportunity for you to shine, right? Like this
Absolutely.
is a chance for you to be the most important person in your life first.
Yeah.
And then be there for your family, and then be there for your work. And we're all a community. It's symbiotic. These three things cannot exist without each other. If they're not all stable and not all grounded on your stability, then things are going to be more difficult for you. So take the initiative to build up yourself, fill your cup so that you can be present for and be a superstar for everybody else.
I love that. I love that, Jen. You know what? The word that I just latched on to actually while you were sharing that tango visual, right, was vulnerability, the openness for you. So I love what you said. So on one side, you've got leaders pressured to the max. And to all the leaders out there, Jen and I feel you. We want you to know that we validate your feelings. There's so much pressure because you are always on in your life, and you have to be always on for your people. Always on. There it's a 24/7 physical, emotional, and mental pressure because you want to be there and to make it happen for everyone, right? But on the one hand, right, on the other side of that corner, there is so much pressure and stress to keep your life going with all of the uncertainty happening. So guys, if you think about it, while we all have roles to play, we are playing in the same playground with the same tools, with the same, it's just that we're all wearing different hats. But to actually make the sandbox work for us, to actually make sure that, we're playing safe, we're playing nicely, everybody has to just meet in the middle. Meet in the middle. Like what you said, I love what you said, Jen. Take initiative to fill your cup. And the other end also is taking that initiative to meet someone in the middle, to let go of some of that control, right? To be able to get someone else to be able to help fill your cup, right? So it's that openness and being able to show your vulnerability that, hey, we're all in this together. I know so many people have said that, but I can't say it more because it's so true. We're all in this together. We're actually all experiencing a pandemic together. Right? So I absolutely love this conversation, Jen, and I can't wait to see your 2021 employee survey. That's going to be so cool. I mean, and I know that we've talked a lot, and we want to continue, of course, this conversation. But really, Jen, I guess to wrap things up and to make sure that we're also able to continue empowering both our leaders and our team members to take hold to claim their cup, right, and to fill it up, for not only for today but for the rest of the month of May, or even for the rest of the year until we find out your employee survey results. What's your food for thought, as people, we're in May, we're in the month of May, we're going to June. Next thing we know, it's going to be the second half of 2021. What's the food for thought that you want to leave our listeners in really creating this fabulous space of togetherness, like what you said, the community of building engagement programs together to make sure we all make it to the end?
Well, it sounds very simple when you talk about creating space for your employees, or for your team to do things that are a bit closer, or taking a step closer towards overall wellness. A really tangible thing, though, because it is difficult to start, is to just think about what's going well today. If that's something that you can integrate into the beginning of every meeting, then that's already a huge deal. Like, to kind of force your teammates to think of a good thing, it's very difficult for anxiety and sadness and lack and frustration to exist where gratitude does.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say, think about how you can integrate gratitude or even just acknowledging what is going well into every single day. I set an alarm on my phone for 11:11. It's supposed to be some sort of magic manifestation number or something.
Mm-hmm.
And it just says, what's going well. So at 11:11 every day, I take 60 seconds to just think about, okay, yeah, I've got slippers on my feet. I've had a meal. My kids are okay. There's so many things you could actually keep going with what's really going well, because there is a lot to be thankful for, and that's a small way forward that will take us through.
I love that. I love what you said, Jen, that anxiety and challenges, it's hard for them to compete in a space of gratitude because it's so beautiful. But at the same time, we also know how hard it is also. I love that you set an alarm, and I think that that's something that I would love for everybody to do as well, because sometimes it does overtake us, right? The anxiety. I mean, I just had a lot of anxiety also just this past week with all of the lockdowns happening, and I want to call it out, right? Because I'm human too. We all have that moment. But then there's that moment of clarity when you wake up in the morning and say, wow, I'm alive. I'm alive. I have a job. I have people that support me. I have a fantastic team. And while there are so many challenges, I know we're going to make it, right? And that moment just carries you through, right? Even if there are so many other ways to go about it, right? There's a book that I read just a couple of weeks back. And it said there are so many roads to happy. There's just not one road. There are so many roads to happy. And there are going to be potholes, but it's really up to you how you're going to navigate that. You can, step through it. You can fall into it. You can, whatever. Just the point is for you to keep on going that road. And if you can't go through that road, you just have to make your own path, right? And I think that that's what's important for both, actually, our team members and our leaders, guys. We're not telling you to create just one path. You create a path that makes sense to you, right? Create a path that makes sense to you as an individual, as a team, and as a community, right? Create that path. There is no one road to success or one road to beating this pandemic. There's so many roads, and you have to carve a path that works for you, not against you. I think that would be my food for thought this week, Jen. Combining yours and mine, it's like gratitude, and then paving that path towards that, right?
Well,
And
the
being
gratitude helps you realize what you can grow on to build the path, right? Like,
absolutely.
focus on those things that are going well, and make them get bigger by focusing on them, and that will be your path. I think that's beautiful. I mean,
I love that.
all the tools that we talk about on Level Up are hopefully going to contribute to that, because my co-host Firaz and I actually try out these tools. So please check us out on Spotify or Google Podcasts or Apple Podcasts. Anchor.fm sends us to all those places. You can find us wherever. And for our previous episodes, we're at uploan.ph/podcasts. And I would love to have you on our show, Bea.
Oh my God, sign me up. Next week.
Yes, let's do it.
Let's do it. I mean, ladies and gents, Jen, as you guys, can see, she really just has so much insight, so much energy, and so much more to give, right? The tools on Level Up is not just meant to help you as a professional, but it's meant to also help you personally. So I really do implore everybody to check it out. Who knows, I'll be there in just a minute to to make sure that we're able to share so much more love, because I think that just having these conversations, knowing that you're not alone in carving that path for you guys, is already different. It's a win already today to know that you are not alone and that everybody else is going through this. Man, that's already a win for me, because it means that we've got a support group like leading the way, right? So Jen, thank you so much for being part of B2B Breakfast to Business. I know you're going to be doing a 2021 survey, right? So maybe we can share the love once it's up and running, because we definitely want to be able to share, guys, more information. I'll have Jen back on the podcast once we have those highlights, because it's so important for us to continue having conversations like this, not only for business owners and business leaders, but for you guys, our team members, the people, like what Jen, what you said, if our people are not there, if our people do not show up, we do not have a business. So it's so important that we not only hold a space for them, but create that space together so that it will make sense for all of us. So once again, Jen, thank you so much for being your fabulous self. Thank you so much for being part of our breakfast conversation, and really more power to you, Uploan and Level Up. Thank you so much, Jen.
Thank you so much. It was so much fun. Thanks, Thea.
Thank you so much. And ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be talking about not only how we can make the workplace safe, secure, and productive, like what Jen had just been talking about, but next time we're actually also going to be talking about diversity and inclusion. So don't miss out on what we want to continue building in the workplace, because here in Breakfast to Business, we want to talk real, we want to talk shop, we want to talk advocacy, because we want to make things work for us as we carve this future reimagined, and as we recover from this global pandemic. So thank you so much for tuning in to B2B Breakfast to Business. We'll see you soon. And don't forget to check out our different channels for more information on what we have up next. Thank you, everybody. Happy morning, and continue making waves and great changes in your lives today. Ciao! And that's it for today's episode of B2B Breakfast to Business. Join our Facebook community, the Breakfast to Business Club, where we can delve deeper into all of these different topics. The community link is actually in the description, so check it out and join in on the conversation. Also, don't forget to tune into Team Asia's social media accounts to keep yourself updated on these breakfast happenings. We are on Facebook, www.facebook.com/TeamAsiaPH. We are on Instagram, www.instagram.com/TeamAsiaPH. We are on LinkedIn, www.linkedin.com/company/TeamAsia. And of course, our wonderful website, www.teamasia.com. Remember, stay safe. See you again soon here at B2B Breakfast to Business. Thank you. Ciao.